Ugh. Eating peanut butter crackers before doing this would be a good idea. Why did everything just go down? No. Come back. Okay. If anything sounds weird, I haven't really messed with the audio much or anything, but if anything sounds weird or needs to be turned up or down, just make it known. Hello, Vicious. Thank you for calling me Poop Gun. I've done that today. Anyways, hello, and welcome to the first ever episode of an actual legit Popcast. Not just a casual stream that I do and title the Popcast because I think it's a clever pun or whatever. I've always wanted to make a Popcast type thing, but I never really had a topic I wanted to discuss enough or had anything that I felt like I had enough knowledge on to discuss in a medium like this. And to be honest, I still don't. But I wanted to go ahead and try this out and see what happens. So whoever you are, whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live, which I guess I should switch this little thing to live, or a VOD later or whatever, I hope you enjoy this, unless I really don't care. So I've been commentating a lot recently in a bunch of lower level tournaments. I started out last year around summer of 2019 doing casual Fridays when my friend Vicious brought me into that tournament. So that's where I kind of got my feet wet with commentating. But around October, I stopped and just kind of focused on team stuff with my Team Destiny troops. But then I've, since we won Low Ink back in March of this year, I've been doing more commentating for Low Ink, the Xanadu Tournament Series, and I also casted the Div 7 finals for Season X of Ludi, which I didn't save on my stream. I should have before it got deleted after 14 days or whatever. Hello, Sci-Fi. I'm glad you're not Blackout Makeout anymore. Booyah, Sci-Fi is much better. So the goal of this little stream podcast thingy here is to learn more about the teams that are around the Div 8 to Div 5 scale. Quote unquote, the lower level division of competitive Splatoon. Maybe lower level includes Div 4 and maybe some of Div 3. I don't know. I feel like the Div 4 and Div 3 teams get enough kind of coverage and attention based off of their results that they do in SAC. But I feel like the teams that are in this lower group don't really get any attention. And as a result, those teams don't really stick around too much, or the players don't stick apart on those teams very long, and you don't really see these teams actually stick together and develop and kind of grow and try to come from the bottom and work their way up to the top. So that's more of the point of why I wanted to do something like this, is to give those teams a little bit more attention, especially the teams that have been around for a long time. A team like Eurobeats or Inkvaders, or heck, even Geek Squids, I remember from being around a long time ago. To some of these newer teams like Persistence that it's doing really well in these tournaments right now. Hello, Tofu. I don't want to focus too much on Div 4-ish teams. That's the div my team is currently in, and I do know a lot about Div 4 teams, especially after this last Ludi season where my team basically looked into every single opponent we play, basically looked over every single piece of film that we had on them out there. So I feel like I got a good grasp on all the teams in Div 4, but 5 on down, I want to get to know a little bit more. So that's kind of the point of this little podcast. So some do's and don'ts that I want to kind of get going on here. I do want to focus on just Div 8 through 5. Now, a lot of tourneys that I'll be talking about include teams that are in Div 4, which is fine. I'll talk about those teams as well. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast, especially since Ludi switched to having that X Plus division. So tournaments like Low Ink and Ash Cup, they used to have the cutoff at Div 5, decided to bump it up to Div 4 since there were more divisions total, I guess. But again, the main focus is going to be trying to be on 5 and under. I don't want to talk about drama in the community. That doesn't say I don't comment on it. I do typically comment on drama in the community on my Twitter, and I try to do it in just one tweet. I don't want to do like a tweet like a whole Bible chapter on what I think about this or that or whatever. I feel like there's enough content out there that if you want to learn about drama or you want that kind of tea or whatever, that you can get it. But I don't want to focus on that. I rather focus on things that are actually happening in the game versus what's happening outside of it. If something major does happen, I might comment on it on a Popcast episode, but not really looking to be the main focus of these things. I might consider doing interviews. If there was like a captain for a team that would want to come on and talk with me about whatever, I might reach out to whoever wins this upcoming Low Ink and see if they want to come on and talk for a little bit, just about their experience and what it felt like to win Low Ink or whatever. But that might not always be the case. Why I say might is that a lot of you out there are stupid, annoying kids and wouldn't be really good to interview. Or might not have something interesting to say or whatever. So I don't want to just bring in a person just because of whatever. If I feel like that person has a good story to tell or is I don't know, has a good experience or good information they want to share, or something interesting happened and I want to know what their take is on what happened, then I might bring them in for that. But it's not, I don't want interviews to be like the main focus of what this is. I did initially give out a tweet a few weeks ago of like, what do you think you would want to see during something like this? And somebody mentioned like a VOD review or like strategy information and things like that. I do not want to do that. And let me kind of explain. I love giving advice when it's asked for. I feel like I have a good enough understanding of how the game is played at this level that I could give valuable advice to a team in a Div 8 to Div 5 setting. I don't want that to be a part of the Popcast because it might come across as kind of condescending or like me putting myself above the teams that I'm kind of looking at, and that's not really the case at all. And it might, I'm not really big on unsolicited advice. When my team kind of started out in Div 6, back when when Div 7 was the lowest, we did seek advice from people. We went to specific people we liked and we trusted, or we valued their input, and we were like, hey, can you look at this scrim VOD that we did? Or, hey, can you come, what's your idea on this kind of comp versus this? Or, hey, how would you play this certain situation? Or whatever. Like, we had people that we trusted information for that we would go to and get information from them. And we also had people who not in there, I wouldn't say we necessarily didn't trust, but people that would just kind of give us information without us even asking for it. And I was personally kind of found that annoying, so I don't really want to come across as that. As like, hey, here's what I think you guys should be doing instead of what you already are doing. Like, I'm not here to do stuff like that. Now, the nature of what I'm talking about, I'm going to be giving my opinion on things. And there might be some like opinion strategy wise, but that's not to be taken as like, oh, well, Popgun is saying that we should do this instead of that. And you take that for what you will. I'm not gonna sit here and try to do like VOD reviews or anything on this. This is just more so kind of explaining what I'm seeing, if that makes sense. And I shouldn't eat any more peanut butter crackers if I'm going to keep talking. And I will interact somewhat with the chat, if there is a chat, as long as what is being, as long as it's on topic to what I'm currently talking about. I don't want to get sidetracked, because I'll do that pretty easily. So if I'm talking about a tournament and somebody hops in and like, well, what do you think about Splatter Swim? And I'm just like, Splatter Swim's not even in that tournament, that I'm not going to like go off on a tangent about Splatter Swim. Because then I'm going to forget what I was actually talking about, and then it's just going to be a train wreck. I'm also going to try not to say any poopy words. Which is difficult for me, but life goes on. I'm also going to try to not talk the entire time and actually breathe and drink water and just chill. So the first thing I'm going to look at is Ash Cup. After that, I'm going to take a brief look at Little Squid League. Hello, Brias. And then, not the Podcast. No, not the Podcast. I would guarantee you there's something already called the Podcast out there. Probably done like 60 times. I'm already getting sidetracked. I'm going to do the Ash Cup first, Little Squid League, recap those two tournaments from the past couple of weekends, do a preview, maybe some predictions into what I think is going to happen in this upcoming low ink. And then my wife is out of town, so I'm going to have to go make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich so that I can survive for another day. So let's look at Ash Cup. If I can get this at full screen. Yes. Okay. Let's switch over. Look at this. Is this the best kind of setup we can do here? Yes. Okay. So I did watch the entire stream for this one. The format for this tournament in the past was double a limb, or at least the last tournament they did back in April was double a limb. Excuse me. This time around they did a group format. And I like that. I like that idea a lot. Most of these lower level tournaments are just Swiss, which is fine. I love doing Swiss personally, just because I like tournaments where I know my team is going to get a lot of games in. Especially in the lower level ones, because you don't know, you got such a wide range of skill levels. You got teams that are like, you got teams that can win Div 4 in some of these tournaments, and then you got teams that are just like, oh, I got one player who's X rank. Does that mean we're too good for this tournament or no? And it's like, oh, honey, you're in for a surprise. So Swiss is fine, but for a tournament like Ash Cup that's getting in some of these teams that have a bit of a resume, and as you look at these rosters or the amount of teams here, all of them have some sort of resume. Maybe not Boeing Removal Services. I wonder if they're actually sponsored by that. I don't know what that is. But the only two names on here that are not familiar are Not Fluorescent and Alloptic. Alloptic. No, Alloptic's been in some things. What was I thinking? Oh, Standing for Targets. But those two teams are pickups. So, like, the players on there do have a little bit of a resume to them. So, when it comes to a group tournament where you have to do some sort of seeding, at least I would hope they did some sort of seeding for this, so it's just not you don't end up with a group of death. It's just nice to see. I can't think of a single other instance where in a lower level tournament where a group seeding led into a top cut. And so I think that in itself is kind of interesting. Boeing is played in other tourneys. Okay, well then every team in here then has a resume of sorts, whether by a pickup or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting to see. The only other lower level-ish tournament I can think of that would do a group tournament would be SIC doing it. I think with their coast to coast, they do group tournaments instead of Swiss. I wouldn't really consider SAC lower level because there have been Div 2 teams that play in it, Div 3. So that's not really... So this, as far as like a Div 4 or Div 5 and below kind of tournament, this is the first time I've really seen it here. So it's nice. It's nice to see that. Seeding groups is very difficult. Yes. since I did that to you on Saturday, Preivew, yes, I assume that that adds a level of difficulty to things. And same with kind of double a limb, which little Squid leagues did double a limb when I get to that. But the focus right now is just this group thing. My point being, I love that Ash Cup attempted to do a group thing. I think if they had more teams sign up, it would have worked out a little bit better. I don't think there were any issues with this, how this actual tournament went. The only real issue with the tournament itself is that it was on at the same time as Ink Theory and the North America Open. So all the North American... Well, actually, there weren't really a lot of teams in the North American Open that were actual legit teams. There were only about maybe 15 or 20 teams actually recognized in the NA Open, and everybody else was just a casual going into that. So maybe that didn't hurt Ash Cup a little bit. It probably did. I think I saw Splatter Swim during the NA Open when they would have been a good team to hop in on this one. In Ink Theory, I had a lot of teams in it as well that could definitely compete in this tournament. So, but then again, when you kind of look at the schedule going out, next week is Low Ink. You can't compete with that if you're Ash Cup. The week after that, and you're getting into August, and there hasn't been an Ash Cup since April, so it's been about 3 months now since they last had their last cup. Groups was also annoying because 3 teams can tie for second place. Well, if you look at this bracket right here, 3 teams tied for second place. If you look at Group A, this first team is their French team, and I'm not going to pronounce. They called them CP on stream because they didn't know how to pronounce that either, and the commentators were EU. So, Siopar. We're just going to call them CP. So CP won their group, but Xanadu, Not Fluorescent, which is confusing because Fluorescent is actually in this tournament, and Revitalize all went 2-2. So I don't know how they got the tiebreaker in for that one, but whatever. It's not my concern. So only 14 teams ended up signing up for this tournament. This tournament did move pretty quickly. My team was doing Ink Theory at the same time, and I was getting pings as Ash Cup was going on, as just like, hey, round 2 started, round 3 started, and they were all like, despite being a lower level tournament with groups, it was play all 3 as well. So like you had to play all your games. Maybe that's what kind of decided into the tiebreaker there for that Group A. And you had play all 3. What was I talking? Oh yeah, Ink Theory. Ink Theory was, each round with Ink Theory was much slower than the rounds that was going on with Ash Cup. I think at one point, even though they both started at the same exact time, I think at one point Ash Cup got up a 2 rounds ahead of where Ink Theory was going, which was Swiss. So good for them. I don't know what they did to kind of keep things going quickly, or if they kind of forced teams to ready up. The fact that all these teams are actual legit teams and not just new teams to tournaments really helps a lot. Something that kind of trips up low ink is we always get a lot of teams that have never done tournaments before to begin with. So they'll hop in and they'll, when the round starts, they'll try to talk to the opposing team on Discord instead of the Battlefied chat, or it takes them 10 minutes to get into a lobby, or somebody DC'd. Let's spend some time figuring out what the DC rules are, or did this guy lag? This guy is. Well, of course, there's lag. There's lag in just about every tournament. But this guy lagged. Do I need to? Is this lag the reason we lost? Do I need to slow down the whole tournament by bringing this to help desk or whatever? You don't get that kind of nonsense when you have a bunch of teams that know what they're doing, which is what's going on here. So I did watch the stream of group play. Let's actually look at some of these matches here. I think the first match on the stream was not Fluorescent versus Revitalize. Revitalize is an interesting team that I want to get to know a little bit more. They make a lot of top cuts in low ink. I think second all time. Yeah, they've made 5 top cuts in low ink. I think the Crusaders are number 1 all time in terms of number of top cuts made. At 8, I believe. It's like 7 or 8. Whatever. But Revitalize is number 2 all time. They made 5 top cuts. So they're a team that's got some experience going deep into tournaments. So them losing to a pickup of not Fluorescence. I couldn't tell you exactly who all was on because the names weren't familiar to me for not Fluorescent. One team, the one player that I knew was from this newish team called, if I can look them up. I can't see. I don't know if I'm still in their Discord or not. But it was Vesta, who used to be a part of Technical Machine. And then the other players were names that I didn't really recognize. So I think overall Revitalized didn't really have a good tournament here, considering that the opponents they were going up against. Let's see, in Group B, I think Standing for Targets was put on at some point. Oh, they were playing Alloptic in this round 2 here. And this set was really close. I believe it was 1-1 heading into Game 3. Standing for Targets had, I believe, Robbie from Nova and a few other EU players that I slightly recognized. Again, the point of this this podcast series that I'm starting here is to get to know these guys a little bit better. So I'll keep looking into them so that I can figure out some more stuff about them. But this one was really close. Standing for Targets ended up getting the number 1 seed into Top Cut. I don't know what determined them getting that specifically, but Alloptic, even though... I think Alloptic did eventually advance, actually. I think more teams got into Top Cut than were originally presented here, so Alloptic did show some pretty good... had a pretty good showing against this this pickup team That ended up being number 1. In this group, Group C, this is a tough group. You got Saxophone Ducks, a very good Div 5 team. I believe they made top 4. I don't know if they won bronze or not, but I know they at least made top 4. I would say they. Well, I don't know. That information can be looked up. Takedown Splatoon. This Takedown is really good. Like really good. Like I feel like this is a newish team, or was a team at one point that's kind of disappeared. But I'll talk a lot more about Takedown later. They show up a lot in this thing. The Splatarians, that's a team name I'm not too familiar with. I know they're an actual legit team, though. I just haven't seen any film on those guys. Inkling Technology at Purdue. That is a team I've looked at a lot-ish. A lot-ish. They're, I know Magic 8-Ball, and Allie from Crustacean Crusaders, and I don't know, maybe Roundy has something to do with that too, but they have a lot of people around them who give them a lot of good information. And as you watch them play, you see that the Purdue team plays really smart, almost like smarter than you would expect a team around their quote-unquote div level to actually play. I wish I had some like actual example. I know one like example off the top of my head. I was streaming them for Low Ink. I was commentating their Low Ink game. They were doing Rainmaker at Camp Triggerfish, and they were doing that technique where you spin around, you shoot the Rainmaker to propel yourself. Like they were shooting the Rainmaker backwards to propel yourself, and that's not like a secret technique or anything, but that's kind of a technique you wouldn't expect a team in a lowerish div to actually know. First off, to actually know that it's a legit tactic to use when you're like running up a grates that you can't swim. And B, to have the wherewithal in the middle of a tournament to think, oh, well, here's the perfect opportunity to use this this technique that I learned by watching Kiver's videos. So they... And there's some more examples in the stream that they did. They did the match they did against which one? It wasn't the Ducks that was streamed. It was Takedown. When did they play Takedown? Yeah. It was this third round 3 here. So Purdue, I don't know. Purdue kind of got. I wouldn't say they got hosed or anything, but they definitely got set up in a tough bracket to beat down. Takedown, if I'm just kind of looking back at this, I guess Takedown can be considered a number 2 team in a group, because this CP team ended up making it to the finals. This Standing for Targets team, they beat every team in their group, but Eurobeats is the number 2 team in this group. I don't know. I guess Takedown is appropriately placed, but it's you just kind of look at this group. It's difficult for Purdue to get some wins here, even though they're a smart team. You've met them IRL, but Magic does most of the coaching. That's fair. I've seen Magic stream some of their scrims. I think the last one I saw was a scrim they did against Splat Force. They held their own considering the teams they played in. Yeah, in the Takedown game was actually put on stream, and they did pretty decently well against Takedown. There was a couple. The first game was Rainmaker Black Belly. Also, hello Cooties. I am not commentating today. I don't think there's any tournaments for me to commentate. It was Rainmaker at Black Belly. Really, they just got wiped once, and that's kind of what caused them to lose. They didn't get KO'd or anything. But I mean, at the same time, that's how Rainmaker is. Whenever it always gets me whenever somebody's like, "Yeah, we lost, but we lost because it was Rainmaker." Like, well, that wasn't an issue for the other team. Obviously, it's you have to play Rainmaker differently from every other mode, and if you lose during Rainmaker, you can't just be like, "Well, it was just Rainmaker." Like, no, you lost a Rainmaker game, and that ultimately cost you a tournament. So you can't just kind of shrug that off. You have to actually look at that and figure out what caused you to lose your Rainmaker game. And then I believe they played a Clam Blitz game at Wahoo against Takedown. And that game, Takedown got a big push early on, and then Purdue got a big push of their own and fell just like one clam short of either tying it or taking the lead, and then Takedown just was able to pop it at the end there to kind of. So like you look at it and say 3-0. Well, Takedown's obviously way better than Purdue, but Purdue had their moments, and I believe there was a Splat Zone game mixed in there as well that was competitive back and forth. So Purdue had its moments there against a good team, but I mean, when all you get to play is Takedown, the Ducks, and then Splatarians, and I don't know what the map pool was for the Splatarians game, but yeah, a tough tournament for Purdue. But they're definitely a team I think is on the rise. I think they're a team that's kind of got the right foundation to where they could, if they stick together and actually grow, they could become one of those kind of pesky teams that sneaks up on you, and then eventually become one of those teams that's a contender for some of these lower level tournaments that they play in. So that's overall kind of what I saw in the group stages here of this tournament. And I'm already talking way more about this than I figured I would be. Is this top cut? It is. Let me get some water real quick. Hey, expand. I don't want your ads. Alright. So I loved Top Cut for this tournament. I think they did it really well, the TOs. It was they did counterpick. So the first map was Splat Zones, and I don't know what determined the first actual map, whether it was like predetermined or like it set it. Here's the 8 maps, set it, and then just let the game decide or whatever. But every game after that was counterpick, which I love, and you don't really see that a lot. Again, in lower level tournaments. So there's a lot of cool things going on in this tournament that you can't get anywhere else in these lower level tournaments. And I get why. If you did counterpick at low ink, you would just drag that on forever. Sometimes it takes like 2 or 3 minutes to coax an answer out of a team whenever like it's their turn to pick a map. And then when they give you the map that they pick, it's an illegal map or something. Like it's a map that's not on the list that they can actually pick. So when you add that into something like low ink during Swiss, it would just extend everything way longer because there's just too much. You basically got to take the power out of the player's hands. Because if you give them too much power over things, they're just going to drag things out because they're not going to know what to do. But when you get to a top cut and you give teams the power to do counter picks, it adds a whole nother depth level of strategy. It takes pressure away from the TOs because they don't have to come up with a map list or like a set like, oh, game 5, your decisive game 5 is going to be tower control at Kelp Dome. Like, who wants to do a decisive game 5 there? Be forced to do that, that kind of situation. So putting it entirely on the players, and counterpicks puts a lot more emphasis on game 1, because if you win game 1, then that means it's more likely that if you get to a decisive game 5, you get to decide what that decisive game 5 map and mode is. So it puts a lot more emphasis on every single game instead of just, oh, we won game one because it was Rainmaker at wherever, and we're good. We have an anchorless comp and they don't, so we're faster than them. We automatically win Rainmaker. But game 7 or game 5 is more a tower clan blitz, so we're stuck doing that or whatever. So the game that was put on stream for round 1 was takedown versus standing targets. So takedown. This is what I really liked seeing about takedown. And why I think they're going to be a good team, and why I think they're actually going to be doing really well in this upcoming low ink, is that they can do a lot of different things with just the 4 players that they have. They had an anchorless comp. They had a comp that used the splatling. They had a comp that used the charger. They can do pretty much anything they want to do with just the 4 players that they have. Which really pays off in a tournament like this, where you're going to see a wide variety of different players and different teams, and your comp that you usually do might not work that well against a team that you just go up against, and they're just a better matchup against you based off of what you normally like to do. If you're a team that has a charger and that person can do nothing but charger, and then you run up against a double armor comp, your charger is going to be you're going to be complaining a lot. Or if you have like a blaster main or something or whatever. So being able to use a wide variety of things that Takedown did in this first game really kind of helped him out, especially in a tournament that does counter picks, where you can try to figure out what map works best for you that doesn't work for your opponent. Well, if your opponent can handle pretty much anything you throw at them, counter picks don't really work. The first game was Splat Zones at the Reef, where Takedown used an anchorless comp. And Standing Targets didn't. Standing Targets had an anchor for Splat Zones Reef. The KAs for Takedown in that game, and it went the full 5 minutes. Their person who bottom fragged got 11. Their person who top frag got 13. So like from top to bottom, their entire roster was able to be productive. It wasn't one person carrying them. It wasn't one person. Oh well, you guys, not carrying their weight or whatever. It was just a complete team effort. The counter pick for game 2 was tower control at Shipyard. I think they were trying to think, okay, we're gonna force them to use an anchor. Since that map works out really well for scoped chargers, for e-leaders, for splatlings that have longer range. Takedown didn't use an anchor for that, and still was able to get the KO there. And then the last counter pick game was Splat Zones at Wahoo, and at that point, Takedown did use an anchor. I believe a scoped charger. This is some Splatoon 1 music, I think, Cooties. And I actually need to change the song at some point. Okay. So moving on to round 2. CP and Takedown played. CP beat them, but this game wasn't on stream. The game that was on stream was Xanadu and Saxophone Ducks, who I just referred to as the Ducks. This was a fun one. Xanadu is a team I know really well. They were the team that finished second the last Ash Cup. So they're a team that's familiar with this tournament, even though the format's a little bit different. And the Ducks, again, a very strong Div 5 team, who end up winning this whole tournament in the end. The first game was... So the Ducks have a really interesting story. The first game was... it was a Splat Zones game. I can't remember the map, but the Ducks... It was Mako. Splat Zones at Mako. And the Ducks ended up winning. This guy named Blake for the Ducks used Junior that game. Um, and Xanadu, their retired anchor player, was playing with them that day, along with a new player that they just picked up, a new support player named Ember, who's playing with them. However, Xanadu was running an anchorless comp that whole time. They do their normal bamboo and tetras, and then they have that the armor bot support player they picked up, and then a Wiltsy would do like a sploosh or whatever else was kind of necessary, but it wasn't a splatling or anything. So Xanadu was committing to this anchorless comp that we're seeing a lot more of. Saxophone Ducks, more of a traditional style. CDS, T-Tech, Armor Bot, and then an anchor. I think they used some Splatbrella or Tentabrella at some point as well. So Xanadu loses the first game. They tried to pick Splat Zones at Skipper Pavilion. They couldn't pick it because the last game was Splat Zones. I don't know why they wanted to go with Skipper Pavilion Splat Zone specifically, but that's the map they wanted. So the TOs turned that down. And they went with the much better option, which is Rainmaker at Humpback. If you're going to run an anchorless comp against a team that does an anchor, and you're going to run a sploosh, and you're going to run this like fast comp that you guys want to do, Rainmaker at Humpback makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. And they KO'd them. I think it lasted like a minute and 30 seconds, but Xanadu won that one handily. The Ducks counterpicked Splat Zones at Wahoo. They dominated that game. And then Xanadu decided to go back to... where did they go? They went back to Rainmaker, and this time they went to Mako Mart. And that time, Xanadu got... kind of like the last Rainmaker game. They got a quick KO... or not a quick KO. They got a quick quad in like the first 10 seconds. And took the Rainmaker all the way down to 22 remaining. But Saxophone Ducks, the guy who was using Junior earlier, and the T-Tech Sum had dropped all of that to use Vanilla Blaster. Popped off with 20 KA, and they won the game. I can't think the last time that I saw a Vanilla Blaster being used since the year maybe 2018. So it was cool to see that. Again, especially a blaster pop off the way that Blake did. And that set up the grand final against CP and Saxophone Duck here, which ended up going all the way to a Game 7. It was really interesting. This CP team, when they showed up on stream, it was the first time we had seen them as a team. Like, it was the first time anybody had seen them, to my knowledge. Especially in this tournament, because they weren't on stream at all, so we didn't really know anything about them. They showed up with an anchorless, armorless comp, and they used that pretty much the entire time, this entire set. They win the first game against the Ducks on Splat Zone's Art Academy. And then the Ducks... Blake for Saxophone Ducks was using Junior at that time. So in the second game, Blake, who had just popped off completely with Vanilla Blaster, they decided to go with Tower Control at Anchovy Games. And their thought was, you know what, if you're not going to run an anchor, if you're not going to use armor, then I'm going to go back to 2018 meta, and I'm going to use the Vanilla Blaster. And that set the tone for the rest of the set. It was just back and forth, counterpick after counterpick. Going back to Splat Zones usually worked in CP's favor. Going back to Tower Control usually worked to the Ducks' favor. I think those switched at one point. I think the Ducks won one zone game. I think CP finally used an N-Zap on Tower Control Mako Mart to win, but Blake used the blaster every single game, whether it was a Vanilla Blaster or a Luna Blaster for zones, and it was just a dominant performance by Blake, to be honest, using a blaster of all things. And so this is where and this is where the real interesting thing of the entire tournament happened. So it's Game 7. Hello, Addison. It is Game 7, and CP gets to pick the map and mode for the decisive Game 7. When it came down to... They had used an anchorless, again, this anchorless aggressive comp. The longest range weapon they'd used this entire, the entire set was a Nautilus. But they've been doing a lot of like Tetras and T-Tex and Inzap once. They used like a lot of short-ranged, quick, aggressive weapons. So you would think, okay, maybe they want to do a Rainmaker game. Maybe they want to do like a smaller map that maximizes their potential. Maybe they want to do something that will really force Blake to come off that blaster that should have been absolutely destroying CP. The map they picked was Tower Control at Albacore Hotel to complement their short-ranged comp versus the longer-range comp. And in Saxophone Ducks, I believe Curb was using CDS the entire time too, and Curb was doing really well with it as well. It could be overshadowed if you just look at the KAs, because Blake was just feasting on CP the whole time, but that allowed Curb, as well as they had a T-Tech player as well that was getting a lot of different kills as well. So they had players that were getting up a lot of extra kills that Blake wasn't getting. But they had this long range. They picked a map that highlighted everything that made the Ducks good and exposed every single weakness that CP had. and CP was the one who picked this map and mode. It's so bizarre. It makes absolutely zero sense why they would pick that map and mode. And you would think, okay, well, maybe they were gonna use like an anchor or something, or maybe they were gonna bring out like a ballpoint or a charger scope or something like that. No, they used the Nautilus as their longest range weapon, and then Tetras and all that other T-Tech and all that stuff. Still no armor. Maybe the logic was, well, we don't like using an armor in our comp. What if we use a map where using armor isn't the best because there's water in the map? Maybe that was their logic, but if that was even that, wouldn't make sense, because using armor when you're riding tower from checkpoint 2 to checkpoint 3 can be dangerous, because if you get sneezed on, you're going to fall off and die. Because of the armor recoil. But even that, if you've cleared the first 2 checkpoints at Albacore Hotel Tower Control, you're in a good position to win the whole game. So by the time the tower's moving over water, you're already in a good position to win the game. And if you're on the other side, you're not. If your hope is, oh well, they'll pop armor and we can knock them off, you've already screwed up so much that you've given up the first 2 checkpoints, which are so hard to get past. So if that was their logic, and again, I don't know what their logic was, even that didn't make sense. But Game 7 was such a curb stomp. See, the Ducks just absolutely decimated them through the first 2 checkpoints. I think they ended up getting wiped, and the tower goes back to mid just a little bit so that the Ducks can ride the tower right down their throats at the end there. I think the KAs where the Ducks had 4 players with at least 10 kills at the end of the game, and CP had all 4 of their players with only 4 KA. It looked like a mismatched Swiss game instead of a Game 7 grand final winner takes the entire tournament thing. So that's... And CP was a French team. This was probably 6 o'clock Eastern time, which would be what, midnight, 1 a.m. Maybe some fatigue went into that decision to go with a map that was a complete blunder. Maybe the Ducks said, "Hey, if you pick this map and mode, we'll give you like 50% of the prize money or something." I don't think there was prize money or whatever, but that was it's such a bizarre pick. that, and even the commentators, when the pick came in, the commentators were like, "Whoa, well, this isn't gonna go well." So that's how that ended. And Takedown ended up beating Xanadu 4-3. That wasn't streamed, but that probably would have been a good set to watch. So Takedown ends up getting third place there. CP, and if CP starts showing up in tournaments, I don't know if this is a legit team or they're just starting to show up. It'd be nice to see more of these guys, because what they do comp wise is very, very unorthodox, even in today's meta where people are dropping anchors left and right. To go basically 4 Slayers and no armor is very risky, but it worked out for them. I mean, they made it all the way. They just had one kind of blunder into picking a counter pick map and mode. So other than that, they could have won this whole tournament. But hats off to the Ducks, winning Ash Cup, and good for them for doing so. I didn't see any tweets. I guess I could have looked and see if they were tweeting out about that. So I'm gonna take a. I talked way more about that tournament than what I was thinking I would. Honestly, I kind of just expected this whole stream to last like an hour. I didn't think it'd last as long as it did. So I still got little squid leagues and low ink to go over, and I'll go over those pretty quickly. But I'm going to take a water break real quick. How do you get the pandas here? I believe you gotta subscribe to the Panda Boy. Hello, Carrot. I wonder how many people subscribe to that guy just for emotes. Probably a lot. So Little Squid Leagues is the next thing. This happened 2 Saturdays ago. And this is full screen. This looks like a massive tournament. Let's see. I don't have a lot to say about this tournament specifically. I didn't watch the stream when it was live, and I know there is like a Twitch, like a Little Squid League's Twitch account, which is good. I like it when tournaments have like an actual account just for their tournament. But the VOD wasn't saved, or at least when I checked, it wasn't there. There were still some clips from it, but the actual VOD of the tournament I could not see. Maybe that's just because I was looking on my phone, or maybe it's not actually there and it didn't get saved. But either way, I did not get to see this tournament. And since I didn't get to actually see some of the games, I can't talk too much about it. Just because, like, it's easy to say, like, oh wow, Cal Gang won 3-1, but you don't know the actual story of what happened in those games. You don't know if Cal Gang dominated and then they just choked one game, or if like every single game was back and forth, or Pure Divinity had the lead and lost it in overtime all 3 games. You never know there. You've been fighting for a specific stream for low ink. I have no clue. I don't have a clue. It's no one turned on save VOD settings when I started streaming. So rip. Oh, okay. So that explains that. But I'll definitely look into. I need to start if I'm gonna keep doing this kind of series thing, I need to start watching these things live, instead of cramming them all in one day, which is what I did today. It is kind of dumb that it's not the default. Like, why wouldn't you want to save them initially, and then if you say something crazy in them, then you can just go back and delete it yourself. So, a lot of the low ink, like the past low ink ones, have been uploaded to YouTube. on a different account. But I'm getting off topic here. Even though I didn't look at the actual games, there are still some things here that happened that I do want to point out. Once again, freaking takedown here, going all the way to third losers finals, losing to this Cow Gang team. And this is why I wanted to see the stream. I have no idea who this Cow Gang team is, and I don't think anybody else does either. I don't know if it was just a pickup or what, or if this is like an actual, like, can we expect to see some more Cow Gang action in the future? Is this like are they going to become rivals with Bread Gang or something? Or I can't really tell you much about these guys. I don't really know them. I will say this. Cow Gang is Div 7. They're an actual team. A Div 7 team won this. Interesting. So this is a double elim tournament. Again, like seeing this instead of Swiss. And it looks like a really, really well attended. How many teams? 24 teams signed up for this one. And it was seeded, but you see a lot of upsets here. The number 4 seed lost to Cow Gang 1-2. Again, you can't really see how close those actually are because I don't know what actually happened. Now, obviously, game over. The number 4 seed losing to Cow Gang isn't a big of a surprise when you see the final result. Takedown still won. Triton Splatoon, the number 3 seed, they beat Cuttlefish Crew, which is a team I know is an established team. I'll need to look more information on those guys for next time, though. But Triton Splatoon, they get a win against the Cuttlefish Crew, and then they lose immediately after to the number 11 seed, and then go down and lose to game over, which again looks shocking that a number 3 seed went out so early. But then you see, wow, the 3 and 4 seed are playing in losers round 3. That's a very early setting for those two teams to be playing. So Triton Splatoon getting screwed over slightly there. Going out a little bit early, but I'd be interested to see in this Bukatsu versus Triton Splatoon matchup here to see what kind of happened here, because this was definitely looked like a game. This looked like a tournament that Triton Splatoon could have gone pretty deep in and not go out in the losers round 3. So by the way, thank you for the follow, whatever your name was. It already disappeared. I I'll have to look out for that one again. You can buy me a separate Destiny Wave. Oh, well, thank you. Well, thank you, Kelp Drew, for the follow. Definitely appreciate it. Wait, what's this song that's playing here? Okay. Carrot. I do have a separate notebook that I am starting to build up to figure out stuff like this. Pure Divinity at the number 1 seed went all the way to losers finals, or went all the way to grand finals, I should say. They beat Takedown 3-1. The Splat Fam, I believe this is a team with, no, they're a Div 8 team, or a number 8 seed, so that's got to be a different team altogether. Just looking at this grand finals here real quickly, Pure Divinity versus Cow Gang. This is kind of tough to come back from when you get bracket reset like that. It can be really tough to come back from. And the reason I say that is whenever you do double elimination, if you get sent to the losers bracket, you're fine because you're going to be playing non-stop. As soon as you win, your next game is likely to be going. It might now, if you get sent to the losers bracket later in the tournament, it might take some time for the bracket to catch up to you. But once you start playing games and losers, you're going, and you're just going to keep playing until you lose. And it's fun and exciting, and kind of nerve-wracking. But when you're in the situation that Pure Divinity is in, you play and you don't lose. You lose like 2 games this entire time, and you go all the way to winners finals. You usually gotta wait like I don't know what the wait was for this, but you usually got to wait a good chunk of time for things to catch up there. Oh, hey, thanks, K98K3 of Bread Gang, I assume. How come you guys didn't play in this tournament? So when you got that long wait there, it can really drain on you, especially if you don't play that wait correctly. You see a lot of teams when they're waiting for a round to happen in between sets or whatever, they'll do like solo queue, or let's league because we got to stay fresh. If we're not playing the game, we're gonna lose our ability to play the game. So we got to keep playing the game. So we're gonna do league or whatever. League solo queue will make you pissed off instantly. League will just drain you quicker than what you already are. So I'd be interested to see what Pure Divinity did for this little break here while they waited for Cow Gang to make their run through losers bracket. But the closest example I could give to this was when my team won Ash Cup back in April. We went all the way through winners bracket. We got to grand finals, and we had to wait in like an hour and 15 minutes for like the losers bracket to catch up. And during that time, I stopped my stream. I took my dog for a walk around the neighborhood. We all got something to eat. We just kind of vegged out. And then when I saw losers finals was on stream is when I got everybody back on. We did like a league game. But even though the tournament had lasted like 3, maybe 4 hours, we had only been playing for like an hour and a half, and then the rest of the time was just waiting for things to happen. And that's any tournament that has this double elimination setup. And it only negatively affects the winners in winners finals, but also having that break, if you play it right, again, works out great. But for my situation, when it finally got time for winners finals, it was best of 7, and then if you got bracket reset, it was 7 more. And we played Xanadu. We won the first game by KO, and we're like, okay, this is fine. We got this. We lost the second game in overtime, and that sucked. And then we won the next one, lost. So like every loss was just in the back of your mind of like, this is like we don't want to play this anymore. we've been waiting. We've played the tournament earlier in the day, and then we've been waiting, and now it's back and forth, and it's like we don't really have the energy to do this anymore. And so when you get to this first set here of Pure Divinity versus Cow Gang, and the first team, and it's a best of 5. First off, best of 5 I think works out better than best of 7 for a grand finals, especially if there's a potential for a bracket reset, because the 14-game grand finals is way too much. So I like this best of 5 business here. But when you get to that decisive game, whether it's like a game 5 or in my team's case it was a game 7, in the back of your mind you're thinking, if we win this, we'll win the whole tournament and it's over. If we lose this, then we got like 45 more minutes of Splatoon that we got to slog through against the team that now has momentum over us, and that's difficult. That's really difficult to come back from. So if you lose, which this did get to a game 5, obviously. So once Pure Divinity lost that game 5, that can be very hard mentally to come back from. It's just like, oh gosh, we got to do this all over again to win the tournament. Versus Cow Gang, that's like, yes, we did it. We forced a bracket reset. We can actually win this thing. And I think that's why a lot of times you see the team that forces the bracket reset to go on and win. And I'd be curious to see if that's what actually is there. You were Kelp on. Oh, you were actually on Pure Divinity, and you did not play in grand finals. That happens. Best of 7 is good for a single limb? Yes. For best of 7, single limbs is really good. For a bracket reset, though, best of 5 is probably better just because the maximum number game would be 10. You look at this grand finals, it ended up going 9 games. That's a Ludi set. you know, that's That's an hour. That's roughly an hour and a half of just one set. So yeah, if it was the best of 7, that could have gone on way longer than what it would need to be. So again, this is all I really have to say about this tournament. I'll definitely look into it stream-wise next time we go into it. And it looks like a really, my wife's team, Tooniverse, played in this two tournaments ago, and they really enjoyed their time there. So I think it'd be really cool to see a lot more teams than just this sign up. And this is a Div 5 and under tournament too. There's not very many Div 5 and under team tournaments left out there. Thank you, HD Restia. I didn't get to read all of those letters in my brain before it disappeared. So I'm just going to call you HD. Thank you for the follow. That's awesome. All right. Let me get some water. We're going to look at low ink, and then Carrot's going to tell me who I need to raid. All right, low ink. Low ink is this upcoming weekend. It used to just be this upcoming Saturday, but it is a 2-day tournament this time around. When I checked this, as I was going over my list, or as I was writing down my notes this morning, there were only 53 teams, I think, signed up. So 3 more signed up since then. Does that change my... Let's try to refresh and see if that changes kind of my predictions for anything or whatnot. Oh, 57. Wow. Oh, Tropics. Okay, cool. That's who's playing for Tropics? Sir Skit. Okay, cool. That was a team I was actually going to gripe at for not signing up for this tournament. I'll mark them off the list. I'm very happy Tropics is there. If my pen stops sucking. There it goes. Okay. So there's still a week to go with signups. As long as there are 64 teams that'll sign up, which will happen, then there will be a top 16 cut, and then a 17 to 32 cut. Since it's a 2-day tournament now, we want to try to get at least 50% of the teams to play in the second day. So that's why we kind of see that silver bracket, or I think we call it the beta bracket. Yeah, we call it the beta bracket. There might not be a gamma bracket unless a lot more teams sign up. Because again, you only want you don't want everybody to move on to day 2 if they don't perform well. You want like half the teams in your tournament to do so. I don't think you're going to get the... which is why I asked in the staff chat this morning, Froggy, because I didn't want to come on and say something that was wrong. I don't think we're going to get those 100 teams that we had last tournament. I think a big spike in that was teams that were left over from the North America tournament. And I don't know if any of those Turf War guys are going to be coming over to this actual tournament or not. Just calling it an actual tournament. That's not the Nintendo tournament. But there are a lot of interesting teams that haven't signed up for this yet that are normally signing up. And I didn't really know. At first, my thought was, well, maybe some of these guys are signed up for that midline, or was it midway or midline, the middle team? No, Awake has not entered yet. And Awake did a really good job. I think Awake won the silver bracket or the beta bracket or whatever. But some of the notable teams that have not signed up yet West Broadway Grillers, Leggett, Cosmic Ink, Pure Divinity, Persistence. If Persistence signed up, I would pick them as my favorite to win this tournament right now. Splatforce, Ink Dragons, Eurobeats, Symphony, CIA, Triton, Splatoon, Octo, Inkers, Twilight, Anglers, Awake, Addicted, Penguins, Dale, Sushi, Xanadu. There's so many teams that are used to playing in low ink that we're used to seeing that have not signed up yet. And again, my thought was, well, maybe some of these teams, well, a lot of these teams are Div 4 that I listed off, and maybe they were playing in that midway tournament that's this weekend. But I just checked, nobody signed up for midway this upcoming weekend. I don't think they promoted it enough yet, so that might change. And in all honesty, those Div 4 teams would probably be better off playing in a midway tournament just so they could get kind of used to that. Carrot, you didn't even know. I'm like 80% sure. I'm going to double check. I know there's like a second tournament. Midway Season 1, Tournament 2 on July 25th at 6 p.m. What is July 25th? That is Saturday, correct? Yeah, so I thought like some teams had signed up for this tournament. But no, nobody signed up for this one. So that's not holding those teams back. So I'm kind of curious why some of those teams have not played in. RZA is basically banned from low ink at this point. Who's that? Anyways, what was I getting on with this? So since all of these notable teams are out, if it stays this way, it's going to open up the door for a lot of teams that have been dying, who have been not getting into Top Cut because the tiebreaker didn't work their way, or the Swiss was just unkind to them and they got fed too tough an opponent, or whatever reason, or lost a coin flip that doesn't really happen anymore. By the way, tiebreakers suck. The old saying is tying is like kissing your sister. A good way to avoid tiebreakers, though, is to win your games. It's plain and simple. If you win your games, you'll make Top Cut. If you don't, then you got to complain about tiebreaking rules. But anyways, if I were to just look at these teams that have signed up here, and I were to predict who the top 16 teams are, my top 8 at this time would be Splatter Swim, definitely. Inkvaders, I don't know. They're top 16 for sure. But Shads, I know their usual backliner was taking a break, or announced on Twitter that she was taking a break. I don't know if she's going to be playing in this one or not. I hope she does. If she does, then I feel like Inkvaders is a top 8 contender. Again, just looking at the 57 teams that are here. Revitalize, even though they didn't do too hot in the Ash Cup, Revitalize has been in 5 top cuts in low ink before. You should just, anytime Revitalize signs up for a top cut, regardless of what teams are signed up for it as well, just pencil them in as a guarantee to make top cut. Swiss just gets them in there every single time, so just pick Revitalize there. And honestly, if a lot of these teams aren't signing up, they might be a threat to win it. Evening Chickens. I don't know why their name is Evening Chickens. Where are these guys at? These guys. I don't know much about these guys. I did see them play in the Xanadu tournament series. They did really well. They didn't win that tournament. But this is a good team to keep your eye on. I hope this team sticks around. And I hope these names are like their actual IGNs and not like some team that's smurfing. I've never seen a barbecue sauce in a solo queue before, but I hope these guys are an actual team, and I'd like to see more of them because they are a really good team, and are definitely top cut contender. Squid Row, Voir, who was the number 1 seed last tournament. Takedown, obviously. And then the last team I think that would be in the top 8 range, kind of debated in my head. honestly, I think you might be able to put Tropics there. Especially because they have Sir Skit playing for them. Sir Skit is just an absolute beast of a Slayer. Trying to start a new team called Luau, I think, but I don't know if Luau's going to be competing in this or not. So Sir Skit used to be on Tropics, so it's nice to see Sir Skit come in and kind of help out these guys. Yes, it just subs, but still. Sir Skit coming in for the Tropics really kind of elevates them because he's a fantastic player. I think I'm gonna go ahead and pencil in Tropics as my other team to make top 8. Other teams I think have a potential to make top 16 again if their signups don't change the way they are right now. Divine Downpour, they did really good last tournament. They didn't make top cut. They went 4-2, but the only 2 teams they lost were the teams that finished number 3 and number 4 in their groups, or not their Swiss group. So they lost to Pure Divinity and then Blue Ringed Kraken. So Swiss is just a little bit kinder to them. Now, if you want to make top cut, you got to beat a team like that. But Divine Downpour, I think Divine Downpour has a legit shot at making top cut in this one. Mukuna, I think, has an opportunity to do so. Access Denied, Apocalyptic Inc., Geek Squids. Geek Squids is such an interesting team. If you've done League at midnight, I guarantee you've come across Geek Squids at one point or another. They're a sneaky good team. They got a backliner on their team, Kid Crow, that is absolutely insane, and gets a lot of key kills for them. Key kills by Kid Crow. But just a cracked charger in general. I think this might, with this setup here, with the teams that are currently signed up for this, I think this is Geek Squid's opportunity to get into what I believe would be their first top cut in low ink history. I'm pretty sure it is. I do have the data to look at, but I'm just being lazy. I think Eloptic has an opportunity to get in there. And then Froggy's mentioning Akuma making the top 32. That's a team I haven't really looked into yet, this team right here. Oh, is that Quick? I think I remember this. Okay. I'll definitely look out for that team then. Now, top cut history. Most of the time, a team that makes top cut is a team that has never done it before. In the past low ink tournaments, of the 16 teams that made top cut, 5 were returners. So that means there were 11 new teams that made top cut last time. So all those teams that I just listed, some of them are new, but it's more likely than not that some of these teams that we have no idea who they are going to make a top cut. And I don't mean that in the sense of that we have no idea who they are because they're smurfing. What I mean is we have no idea who they are because this is their first tournament and they're a new team and they want to see how good they really are. Like, I don't know who this port... Maybe this team will win the entire tournament for all I know. I think Krill Streak actually is a dark horse team to win... to make it into top cut as well. This team... So, this team was not supposed to play on Sunday last tournament. They were the first team to be eliminated from the Gamma bracket. As far as, like, not qualifying for it. But what happened was, as teams drop out, and they say, well, we're not going to be able to compete on Sunday, then we start pushing up the teams from people... we start putting up the teams that didn't qualify for the second day. So Krill Streak was the last team to make it into the final bracket, the lowest bracket on Sunday, and they ended up winning the entire thing. So a team that wasn't even supposed to be playing on Sunday won their entire bracket. So I think that's got to count for something. Definitely that experience of winning something for a team is is a great feeling to have. So I think that's going to work for Krill Streak's favor, and I think they might have an opportunity to make top cut here again. Sivoir was the #1 seed in the tournament, the last low ink tournament. However, one thing I do kind of want to point out, your seeding really doesn't matter in low ink. Since we switched to the double group Swiss stage thing, where half the teams that sign up are put into one Swiss group, half are put in the other, the top 16 seeding has been like the #1 seed is just the team that finished first in one group. #2 is the team that finished first in the other group, etc., etc. So you don't, in your first round, you play somebody from the opposite group. You'll see a new team in the top cut that you haven't seen at all. Port Rakume is 3 players from Midnight. Cookie, great. I don't know. Those names don't sound familiar for Midnight players. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. Or maybe it's like Midpoint. Oh, why did I think Midnight? Okay, so this is like a Midnight pickup or like an actual new Midnight team. Okay, well, maybe I was right. Maybe this random team I've never heard of might actually win the whole tournament. We go. But my point being, your seeding doesn't matter. The #1 seed, we've done 3 tournaments with a top 16 cup up to this point. The #1 seed is a whopping 2 and 4 all time in top cut. They have won, if you break that down by games, they've won 7 games and lost 14 times. The #1 seed in these top cuts and low inks gets absolutely hammered by 16 seeds, by #8 seeds. They just can't advance far at all. So seeding doesn't matter. The winner of the April low ink was the #3 seed, White Wolves. The May low ink was #13 seed, Primera, a Div 6 team. The winner of the June tournament was Trick or Treat. They were the #9 seed. So seeding doesn't matter. All you need to do is make top cut. Now, part of the issue with last tournament, not really an issue, is with this 2-day system, you might not always have your same roster both days. You might need to pick up a sub. But to that I say, that wasn't really an issue at all for the last tournament for Persistence. Persistence is a team that is known for their brush play, the unique way they play their brush as well. They didn't have their brush player from day 2, but they did have them for day 1. So they had a sub instead of their brush player. So Persistence is basically a different team identity-wise day 2, but they still went all the way to grand finals. So it doesn't always have to come down to, I need 4 guys that can play both days. You just need to make top cut on Saturday. And then if you do that, any of these teams could win. Now, I say any of these teams can win, but if you just look at just this roster of the teams that I know that signed up here, I don't see any team that could beat, and I don't want to put pressure on anybody, but I don't see any team that could beat Takedown. I honestly do not. These guys they played so well in the Ash Cup, even though they finished 3rd. They played so well in the Little Squid League, even though they finished 3rd. But all the teams that beat them are not here. And they can do, again, to win a tournament, especially a 2-day tournament like this in the lower level, you got to be flexible. You got to be able to do a wide variety of comps. You got to be able to do... you have to be able to handle pretty much any map and mode that's thrown at you. Takedown has shown the ability to do that at a very high level. I think Squid Row has a good opportunity to knock them off. I wouldn't be surprised if Squid Row won this tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if Splatter Swim won this tournament either, honestly. I know Splatter Swim didn't. I believe Parias corrected me. He said they didn't win They lost in a bracket reset in the silver bracket, but I think they're definitely a team that can make a top cut in a tournament with this kind of lineup here. And but they've shown an ability. They've made top cuts in low ink before, and they've shown an ability to do pretty well in those as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Splatter Swim did it. Revitalize, I would be surprised if they won the whole thing. They finished in the top 4 before. But Revitalize is going to have to win this tournament at some point. I mean, if you're going to keep making top cut after top cut after top cut, eventually you're just going to find a way to win the whole doggone tournament. So, and then Voir, who finished number 1 last time. So they're obviously a good team. If they can just overcome whatever that curse is with being the number 1 seed in this tournament, they might have an opportunity to win this one as well. But if I were just to go to the booth today, the voting booth, and put money down on a team to actually win this tournament, I think it's going to be Takedown. Where'd they go? Somewhere. I think it's going to be Takedown. And if it's not Takedown, then it's obviously, it's going to be the Kinsa Clan, a fan favorite, of course. I need to actually learn some stuff about Kinsa Clan. Maybe I'll talk about them next time. So this was an hour and a half stream. I talked way too much than what I actually thought I would be. Win the $40. Yes, I'm putting down Takedown to win. I almost said it. Almost said Kinsa Clan again. I'm gonna take Takedown to win the $40 and be banned from low ink forever. So that's enough talking out of me. Thank you for watching or listening. Whether you're watching this live or you are listening to this on a VOD review or wherever. If you would like to be a part of this podcast, by the way, Carrot, can you tell me who I need to raid, please? If you would like to be part of this podcast in some way, if you'd like me to interview your team's captain or look at like a VOD of your team or something, or you want to share information about your team with me so that when I talk about them, I actually have some legit information to talk about. By the way, thanks for the follow, Hoenn, and the other person who I missed. I think it was Shadow something. But if you want to be a part of this kind of thing, or you want to give me some information about your team specifically, you can reach me on Twitter at Mr_Popgun. Discord DMs are usually better. I'm always on Discord. That is Popgun #5882. Or Twitch at Popgun25. Just type in Popgun on any social media thing and you're likely to find me. You might find a Miss Popgun. That's my wife. Not like my internet, like pretend wife that like actual lives in my house, makes food for me, loving wife. You can DM her too, I guess, and she'll just forward you stuff to me. It is quite often that I'll get something like, hey, I saw you in League last night. GG's. And I'm like, who the heck are you? I didn't do anything. Like, did you not see the miss in front of the pop gun when my wife was playing? Or did you just see the pop gun and automatically think of me? That's awesome. Anyways, yeah, by the way, Blue, that's a good raid. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next Monday when I do a recap on this upcoming low ink.